This interview was made possible in part by a grant from Arts DFW.
I'm Melynda Seaton, and I'm here at the Modern in Fort Worth speaking with the artist Jaune Quick-to-See Smith about her exhibition, Memory Map. Hi, Jaune. Thanks for talking with us today.
Hi, Melynda. I'm so honored to be here.
Well, the honor is mine. It's just wonderful that we actually get to speak with the artist on such an important exhibition. So to start with, this idea of the title Memory Map, I just was wondering if you could share a little bit about how that idea of the memory map ties into the themes of a lot of your artwork.
You know, that was a title that was offered by Laura Phipps, the curator, and we discussed that title, and I had other titles, and I thought, you know, maybe something kind of punchier with the word power or red road in it or something. So we went back and forth with that, and in the end we came back around to that one. At first I thought it's too calm and, you know, people won't remember it, but interestingly it's been a really good title for this exhibition because it is talking about the land all the way through the exhibition, from the very beginning all the way up right to the end. And then in terms of, you know, the length of my career, you know, it is really a memory map, both literally and figuratively, I would say.
So one of the things that I've always noticed about your work is that you always tend to focus on issues that are super relevant to social and political issues associated with Indigenous peoples throughout the Americas. And so I was wondering, can you talk about why you're always drawn to those themes? And it seems to be something that's present in a lot of your artworks.
You know, I think as a little kid, I think because of my life as a little kid was about survival. Those are issues that impacted me deeply, of course. As a child, moving with my father, who was a horse trader, to different reservations. And then, you know, one vivid memory I have was living at Nisqually in Washington State, and my sister and I being hungry all the time and climbing in the smokehouses for salmon, and always having you know, a runny nose and a sore throat and earaches, and sometimes being in a welfare home, having people blow smoke in my ears because they thought that would cure an earache. I just remember memories like that of what it is to be down and out and poor and not knowing where you're going to be or where you're going to lay your head down. And I remember the only possession were the clothes on my back and a blanket. And I remember my father saying to me, this is good, sis, because we can travel light, meaning, you know, if you just had your blanket and your clothes on your back, you were good to go. He was trying to make us feel better. And my mother had left when I was about 2, so we just traveled with my father. I mean, all those memories of being outdoors most of the time affected my work and my feeling for the land, which was always my solace and my place to play. It was always the place that gave me the greatest relief from life, from the stress of life. So, you know, I carry that into my work as well. But, you know, even always as a little kid and going through school, all the racism in the books and in the teachers' talks and that sort of thing. So I think, you know, all of that affected me deeply. And, you know, in my work, I kind of seek to enlighten people. So when I've gone out to do lectures, which I have for 50 years, in this country and other countries. My main concern was in letting people know, no, we're not a dying race. No, we're not vanishing, as Curtis's photographs had, or there was a film even, I think, called The Vanishing Race, to tell audiences who would say to me, well, I've never met a real Indian before. I mean, I just always thought that was such a tragedy, and would tell them either about a nearby reservation where they could go and see a powwow or something that they could do to enlighten themselves. But my main concern was in letting audiences know that, no, we're not vanishing. Our populations have gotten better health and have increased. So that's an important aspect of my work, is to, inside of a museum, is to let people know we're very much alive. So, text that you'll see in my work here is, from New York Times, our reservation newspaper, the Charcusta. You see that throughout the work. It's to let people know that we are here, we are still alive, and our numbers are increasing.
You were talking about, you do painting, you do sculpture, you do all of these kind of, a lot of really multimedia types of works. And so kind of tying into another question that I had, and I was thinking about like your Indian Madonna enthroned, or even the trade, like the gifts for trading land with white people, like how there's so many different objects and different types of materials that you incorporate in. And so I was curious, like in your making process, do you think about the materials, or is it something that just kind of comes organically? Or does the materials dictate the meaning, or vice versa, or a little bit of both?
I think that comes out of my background. Having, as a little kid, not having regular toys like crayons and things like that. In fact, I didn't see crayons or tempera paint until I went into the first grade. And like all little Indian kids, I don't know why, but we have a penchant for like studying something first and then smelling it and then tasting it. That's kind of our routine. And I remember library paste was really tasty. And I always thought, if I just needed a little snack, library paste would be an okay thing. That's when I met, art supplies and became enamored with the being able to paint or draw. That was kind of like the beginning of my love for, being able to do that, and also at the same time kind of going into a zone where I was in my own world, which I later did with books. We didn't have a library where I lived, but we had a bookmobile that came down the road once every couple months, and I would take as many books as she would let me take, and I was a voracious reader, just like it would take me into other worlds and take me out of my world, which was sometimes kind of violent and scary. So yeah, I'm kind of eclectic like that. I think it was natural for me to do that in my work, of just collecting things that I would see that I might be able to put in the work. So yeah, I think collage and all of those things just seemed like a natural fit for me. When you grow up and you didn't have, all of these accoutrements that, other kids had, or what we think of as America, and, we are BIPOC people, people of color, we don't come equipped with all that. I think that made it just a natural process for me.
That's really kind of interesting. It's almost like the materials kind of guide the process in a lot of ways.
I don't know.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes I have stuff that I throw into a box or boxes I should say, because I have boxes in the studio, and think, I might find a use for this. And so sometimes I clip out headlines out of the New York Times or the Charcusta, or, there used to be a little newsstand in Albuquerque where you could go and you could buy all kinds of newspapers, Chinese and, from all over the world. Of course, it's not there now because newspapers aren't valued anymore. People don't read. So, but I had a lot of those, and I would clip things out of them and put them in my work, not knowing what I was going to do with it at the time. But sometimes I would lay it out on a table, all these clippings, and I would say it was my rap, like a poem, like music, and I could lay the headlines out and make a story out of it. And so I would put that in the painting, and I always kind of saw it as maybe a musical way to present the verbiage in the paintings to tell my story. I think it's all connected. It had the rhythm, like music. So, I mean, there's always a big process in whatever I do. It takes me time, and I have to think about it, do a lot of research. And so in the native world, you find that the process is more important than the end product. In the old days, the end product would have been used, gone on to a new life, to a ceremony, or would have a function maybe. Maybe it was used for cooking or something to wear, or something in a ceremony. It wasn't just something just made to hang on the wall. I mean, that wouldn't have given it a life. So when I do that, I put a lot of time into it, and I guess I see it as having a function. I sort of see my work as having a function. I think that's really important to me, so that it's communicating and saying something. Maybe nobody in that room is interested in it. Maybe somebody will be interested in what I'm saying, because I'm a storyteller. So maybe my story has resonance. I always like to think of it as like the pebble in the stream, going out. Or no, like a bottle with a message in it that you throw in the ocean, and then you don't know where it's going to go or where it's going to land, and maybe somebody will find it. I guess maybe that's sort of maybe a lot for me to expect on my part, but I kind of hope for that.
I don't think so. I think the function of like your work, because there's so much embedded in it, that there is that storytelling, and that's the function, because it teaches the rest of us about experiences that maybe we're not familiar with, or looking at the world in a different way. And I think that's just as important as maybe something having a utilitarian function, like a chair. We have to have food for our souls as well. And so I see that as the way that visual art works.
You know what? That's a really good point. That I can take everyday text in newspapers that everybody reads and put it together and tell a new story with it. That's a really important thing you just said. And that makes me think about that. Thank you for that.
Oh, you're welcome. One of the things, as we're looking at all the work, because this is a huge retrospective of years of effort, I was just wondering if there's any works that you had, that you worked on over time, that seem to have more significance for you now, or are the ones that you're just super proud of, or something that really stands out that you've made over the years?
Well, walking through this exhibit, some of it I haven't seen for 30, 40 years. 50, almost. Yeah, 50. And so it's like somebody you used to know, somebody from your childhood or something, and then you meet them years later, and you're always curious about what they've become or where they've been or something. And it's kind of a funny thing to say that about artwork, but you create it. And so it's kind of like you leave part of your person there. You leave a piece of yourself there. In going through the exhibit and seeing the works, I'm like visiting old friends that I don't exactly remember what they look like, but I'm seeing them anew, and I know, sadly, I'm never going to see them again. They're going to go off to their respective homes, wherever they live, and be with somebody else, and I will never have contact with them again. And so in a part of me is like so happy to see them, and then part of me is about letting go because they no longer belong to me. You know, I've done what I set out to do, and then they go off someplace. And you know what? In the Indian community, whether it's in America or Mexico, when we make things that have a responsibility to the community, when we make something that has a ceremonial responsibility in the community, and when the ceremony is over, it's thought that everything has a half-life, or everything has a life, and then the life is over, just like we. So when we in the Native community make things, we don't like think of them as being hoarded inside of a tomb, like a museum, because I sometimes see museums that way, because they're so separated from the community. When Native or Indigenous people make something, it's not separate from the community, it's part of the community. It's made to use in the community. Whereas in the Euro-American art world, we make things, it's separated from the community. It's not of the church, it's not of the community. It goes into a tomb and it stays there forever, and then only people with money or certain wealth can come there and see it. So, you know, it's really separate. And so it doesn't function in the same way. And I like to think about my work functioning like beyond the tomb, beyond the museum. I like impacting something outside of it. Somebody who would never, ever go inside a museum, and that it might maybe have some function in their life. So yesterday, there was a young woman who came to me who said that she had seen my work, a particular piece of my work. I don't remember where she saw it. Could have been in a magazine too. And she said it impacted her so greatly that she decided she was going to become an art historian. And I mean, of course, when somebody says that to me, that means my work has a function, right? But in the Native community, when the function is over, sometimes Indigenous people take it out and bury it with the artwork that they make. And then my son and I used to go up to the Blackfeet Medicine Lodge ceremonies up in Badger Creek in Montana. And we had a friend there, Dwight Billadu, who was Blackfeet, and he was married into our tribe. So we were always like really good friends with him. And he was talking to my son, and he was telling Neil that on that ridge up there, along the ridge that looked down on our camp with our teepees, he said, I've got a half dozen pieces buried up there. And Neil said, why would you be burying your carvings and your beadwork? And he said, because they were the best pieces I ever made, and I wanted to give them back to the Creator in celebration of Him allowing me to make these pieces. And like I think about that as a different kind of function, that the celebration of life is why I do this, is why I think most artists do this, is whether we're writing a poem or singing a song or doing a dance or painting or making a print, we're doing a celebration of life. And it's my way of being involved with life while I'm here.
That's really amazing. I think that's a good place for us to stop, because you've kind of summed up everything, kind of like the goal of being an artist and like what it means to you personally. So thank you so much for sharing with us today and taking the time to talk with us.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to be here.
Find all of our videos and sign up for our newsletter at artthisweek.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter.